Hello and welcome to another pen video from me, Penultimate Dave. So I have here another 10 pens currently inked up this week. I think let's go through these briefly one by one. We'll go through them in a little bit more detail and then we'll do a writing sample. So from left to right we have the Danitiro, and this is the Takumi, and this is in the Moonlit grass. We have a Danitiro, and this is the Chinkin Cage Momata on Takumi as well. We have a Visconti Daedalus. We have a Yardo lead, and this is the Grande, the Victorian. And we have another Yardo lead, and this is the Grande in the Barley, or Barley corn. We have an Onoto Magna Carta. We have a Visconti, and this is the Camelot. We have a Visconti Last Templar, Jacques de Molay. We have a Ryan Krusac Legend 16, and this is in the Dragon Slayer. And we have an Onoto Magna Classic in the Chased Jade or Green. So I think let's take a look at these pens inked up in a little bit more detail. So I've had this inked up for, I think it was certainly last week and maybe the week before even. This is a beautiful Urushi pen, and this is a pen by Danitiro, and it's aptly named the Moonlit Grass because you have the moon and the moonlight, and you also have the grass there at the base of the pen. I think this is a beautiful, beautiful design in a pen. I think that they've captured the moonlit sky and the grass very, very nicely. You do have a Japanese poem there as well. It's a beautiful Akatamanuri-like finish. I do love Akatamanuri. It's a deep, sort of almost dark red, but it also has a glassy-like finish, almost like a mirror-like sort of water in a pond type finish. Really, really nice. I do love the feel of Urushi. It's a very glassy smooth, but it doesn't feel like glass. As in the hardness, it feels sort of fairly, I want to say soft to the touch, but it's not actually soft at all. But it's just a beautiful material. So I am a fan of Urushi, and I do have a number of Urushi pens as well. So if I unscrew the cap, this is a cartridge converter. You'll see some Macchie stars here as well. You'll see the artist signature, and it has a number 6 size Danitiro fireball nib. And I have to say, although my first Danitiro was a number 8 size nib, which was on the bamboo stories, I still have in my collection today. And I prefer the number 8 size nib. I'm actually loving these number 6 size nibs from Danitiro. So although I actually prefer the number 8 size nib, and if I could get an number 8 size nib, then I would. But if not, then I will certainly go for a number 6 size nib. The next pen here is again another Danitiro. It's a Danitiro Chinkin Cage Momata on Takumi. Again, another Takumi model. Chinkin is this sort of inscribed where they scratch out areas of the pen, and it is again a beautiful work of art. You have those flowers and plants there, some grass, and again you have these delicate, intricate leaves that also change color as it gets to the top. Beautiful pen. Again, Urushi. This is in a black. I don't normally go for black Urushi, but I made an exception to this pen when I saw it at the London Pen Show in March 2022. I decided I just had to pick up this pen, and it is a nice pen. I probably could have done without all of the Japanese writing here, and just had the flowers. I think that would have made it probably an even more attractive pen if it was just flowers and a little bit more flowers and leaves around the body there. But this is an exceptional pen for sure. I do like it a lot. I like that a lot of it is done in gold as well. Now this does have a number 6 size Danitiro fireball nib there again. Both this one and this one are fine nibs. They're both cartridge converter pens, and they're both bouncy nibs as well. So typically I normally find number 8 size nibs are quite bouncy, but these ones, being a number 6, really are bouncy. And I'd almost go to say that they are flexy as well. That they certainly do flex, and they do have quite a bit of bounce to them. The next pen here, I did have inked up last week. This is the Visconti, and this is the Daedalus that you can see there. Now, this is a beautiful pen. It has this blue resin material with effectively some silver dust inside that material. You have these mazes, and you also have the Minotaur head there. Again, a beautiful pen, a beautiful work of art. This is a silver overlay, as I understand it. It also has the maze up here on the cap finial, and just the LE number there as well. Again, this is a beautiful pen. Comes in a really nice display box. It's a Paravac filler. It's a double reservoir. You can probably see the glitter there on the section as well. Say glitter, it's silver dust. And then you have a Visconti number 6 size. It's a 23 cat palladium medium nib. But I do like that a lot. Now, 23 cat palladium nibs, you do get quite a variance in terms of which ones are bouncy, which ones are not. This isn't as bouncy. This is a little bit more of a rigid nib. It's not as rigid as some of the nibs I have in the 23 cat palladium nib material. But it is a somewhat rigid nib, has a slight bounce to it on the tip of the nib. But I do like writing with that nib. It is, I think the pen is a good workhorse writer for me, and it has a good weight to that pen as well. Now, a couple of pens that I picked up summer this year in 2022, I've always wanted a Yada lead Grande or Grand, and I wanted it in the Victorian, and I've always seen this pen and I've always admired it. And then I got to try one at a pen club, and this was, I want to say, October 21, and for some reason I thought I was a little disappointed. I thought it was a little thinner and maybe not as heavy as I thought it would be. However, I got to try it again in my next pen club, which was a long time after, which was July 2022, and I absolutely loved the pen. So you can kind of see where it differs between two different times you try it. So I decided I would hunt around, and I managed to pick up this one. And this is a Yada lead Grand Victorian Viceroy, and this is from 2016, and it's a push on cap. I got this in a fine nib. It is a cartridge converter pen. Total weighs about 61 to 63 grams, I think, in weight. The body itself, I think, is around about 40 grams. It's a nice size. You can post the cap if you want to, and it really does look the part. Now, I don't normally do solid silver pens, but I made an exception because the Grand Victorian is such a beautiful pen. All of this sort of inlay and outlay here is actually struck manually with a hammer and a tool, a chisel, I want to say, but it's not. It's a silver smith's tool, and there are over 3,000 hammer strikes to this pen. So it is made by hand. Each pen is slightly different, but it goes by the same theme. And I have to say, I'm glad that I picked that one up. I am writing with that one, and it is a nice pen for sure. At the same time, I kind of felt that just having one of these in my collection would look a little bit odd. And although I do have other silver pens, it still looks very different. So also the seller had this one, which is again a Grand Yada lead, but this is in the barley or barley corn. So I decided I would make him an offer and see what he would take for these as a pair, and he was prepared to do a discount. So I decided to order them very quickly because I felt that if I didn't jump on them, they would probably go because they were pretty good price, I would say. So again, this has got a push-pull cap. This one is a little bit more secure than the Victorian. Again, a Yada lead, 18 karat gold nib. This is a medium nib. Both pens are cartridge converters. This one is actually from 1997. So this one's a little bit older. I do find if you try to post these caps, it is very back weighted. There is a lot of weight on this silver, plus also the cap as well. But again, these are really good writing pens. I would say that the fine nib on the Yada lead writes a little bit more towards a medium, and then the medium writes pretty much more like a broad. But I'm loving them. That doesn't bother me. Long are the days where I wanted a fine, and if I didn't get a fine, then I would maybe return the pen. Like, providing it's a good writer, or providing you can make it a good writer, then I'm actually happy with it. I don't mind fine nibs. I typically go towards medium nibs, but if I can get a good fine, or I can make a fine into a good fine, then I will do. The next pen here again is another solid silver pen, but this is also got I guess like a coating, a vermeil, an aged look to it. But you can see that the silver here matches this sort of shiny silver. And it will, I think, probably tarnish over time. This is the Onoto, and it is the Magna Carta. And you'll see there 1215, which is when the Magna Carta document was signed in the UK. And it does have part of the Magna Carta inscribed into both the cap and the body of the pen with a coat of arms. This is a very heavy pen. It's certainly heavier than these two pens. Definitely wider as well, a little bit longer. And you do have a solid silver section there as well. And it's a number 7 size Onoto fine nib. Again, a beautiful pen, and it really, I do like how the fine nib writes. I was tempted to go for a medium nib, but I didn't. I stuck with a fine nib because I tried the fine nib out and got to write with it in this pen, and because it wrote so well, I decided to buy it with a fine nib. The next pen is a Visconti Camelot, which I managed to pick up a number of years ago from the Toronto pen show. It was being sold as an estate pen. Apparently the owner had passed away. Unfortunately, I don't know who the owner was. Does that really matter? Probably not. I think it would have been nice to have known, but it was another pen vendor that was selling a bunch of pens from the estate. So I managed to pick this up via a friend. I hadn't realised that this pen even existed from Visconti. It's a Visconti Camelot. Beautiful pen. It's got this lovely herringbone chainmail effect with gold accents. Beautiful pen. And a very long section there. It is a power vac. It's a single reservoir, but it has the older 18 karat gold, and it's a medium nib from Visconti. But this, I find the section a little bit on the thinner side, but I do find it writes exceptionally well. So again, this is another pen that I decided to have inked up this week as well. The next pen is this one, and it's a Visconti. It's a Last Templar, and it's the Jacques de Molay. And you can see, again, this exquisite chainmail. Very different, though, to the chainmail that is on the Camelot there. Beautiful pen though again. I do like knights and armor and the sort of vintage times. So for me, this was a pen that I really wanted and I lusted after for a while. It has the older 23 cat Palladium nib, and that's a medium nib from Visconti. But I lusted after this, and I really love this pen. It comes in a very heavy box. It came with a dagger or a letter opener, I want to say, and also a ring as well. So that in itself, to be honest, I'd never used the letter opener and I never used the ring, but it's a beautiful pen, and I'm glad that I actually have all of that as a set. But the pen is what is more important to me, at least for now, anyway. The next pen is a Ryan Krusac pen. This is a pen made out of wood and antler, and this is a beautiful pen. It's laser etched into the body here. Very, very nice. Beautiful, beautiful material. And you'll see here it's a dragon and a slayer. It has a steel, and this is a medium nib. It is a cartridge converter pen. You do have to be a little bit careful because this is not treated, so it will take on ink stains. But again, a beautiful pen that I like. And then there's this pen. It's an Onoto, and you can see there the Onoto, and it is the Magna Classic in the chased green or jade. It's a pearl green. Beautiful, beautiful pen, and I do like this a lot. I managed to pick this up second hand, very much like the Yada Leads. It's got a number 7 size Onoto nib on there. It's a medium nib. It was ground to a crisp metallic. I have since stubbed that nib. It's a cartridge converter pen, but this is a nice pen. It does have a lot of threads on it though, so one thing to bear in mind with Onotos, they do have a lot of threads. So there you have it. That's my 10 pens currently inked up this week. I think let's now go and do a writing sample. So the first pen is the Danitiro, and this is the Takumi Moonlit Grass. So we'll do an ink swatch. Now this has a beautiful bouncy nib, and I took this a while ago to the pen club that I operate, and a number of people was in awe at this nib because it is so bouncy. So this is the Danitiro, and it's the Takumi, and it is the Moonlit Grass. And it is a fine, and it is an 18 cat gold nib from Danitiro, and the ink in here is Diamine Wild Strawberry. But in terms of bounciness or flexiness, you'll see why, because you can see that there, that line variation and that bounce to that nib. It really does have a nice bounce to it, and I do like the writing experience with bouncy nibs. The next pen here is the Danitiro, and this is a Chinkin Cage Momata on Takumi. So again, we'll do another ink swatch here, and again, another fine nib, another bouncy or flexy Danitiro nib, and I like how this writes. So this is a Danitiro, and it is the Chinkin Cage Momata, and it is a fine, and it is an 18 cat gold nib, and then the ink in here is Pilot Iroshizuku, and it's inner Ho. But again, like, you'll see how flexy that nib is. And I know some people have said to me before that on my modern flex nibs video, that I've done an injustice to the community because modern nibs are not flex nibs. Well, I'm sorry, but these are flex nibs, and honestly, a lot of vintage nibs are not flex nibs. A lot of vintage nibs are actually still nibs. A lot of the 18 or 14 karat gold, or I think even 8 or 9 karat gold nibs are also pretty like nails. So yes, there are some vintage flex nibs out there which are nice noodles. I think these are actually nice noodles as well, and these are modern nibs. So just goes to show really that a flex nib, the term flex, is really in the eye of the beholder. The next pen inked up is a Visconti Daedalus. So we'll do an ink swatch here. And this is also quite a wet writing nib. It is a little bit more of a firmer nib. It is a 23 karat palladium nib from Visconti. It does have a slight bounce to it. So this is the Visconti Daedalus. And it is a medium 23 karat palladium nib. And then the ink in here is Visconti blue. But you'll see that it does have a slight flex to it. Not a massive amount, or at least not as much as maybe those Danitrios do have. But again, it's still a nice writing pen. The next pen is the Yada lead, and this is the Grand Victorian. Now, we'll do an ink swatch here. And I do find that this is quite a wet writing nib. It is a fine nib, and it does have some, I want to say some pencil-like feedback. On some paper like this Oxford Optic, it is also slightly singing, I would say, but I don't mind that. So this is the Yard OLED, and it's the Grand Victorian. Victorian is the pattern of the pen. Now, this is a fine, and it is an 18 karat gold nib. Now, the nib was a little bit scratchy on horizontals left to right when I bought the pen. It was a used pen. I have smoothed it out, and I found it was writing a little dry, so I've actually opened the tines up a bit and made it write a little wetter. The ink in here is Noodlers, and this is Habanero, which is quite a nice red ink. Now, you can see that definitely is a Western fine. You're not going to push a lot of line variation out of that nib, but still it writes very nicely. The next pen, again, is another Yada lead, and it is a Grand, and this is the Barley. So we'll do an ink swatch. And just have to get that started there. A little bit of a hard start. Now, this ink, I do find is a dry writing ink. I'm just going to flood the converter a little bit. So this is a Yard OLED, and it is the Grande, or Grand, and it's the Barley, or is it Barley? I think. Yeah. Just doesn't look right. And then the nib is a medium 18 karat gold nib, and the ink in here is Rora and Klinger, and it's Verdura, which is a nice green ink. In terms of line variation, what can I get out of this nib? That's a medium. I can push it a little bit more. Again, though, it's not pushing as much as the Danitiro zone. The next pen inked up is the Onoto Magna Carta. So we'll do an ink swatch. Now, this is a fine, so similar to the Yardeled Grand Victorian in terms of a fine nib. Does write quite wet. So this is the Onoto Magna Carta. And it is a fine 18 cat gold nib. And then the ink in here is Diamine Earl Grey. And then you can see the amount of line variation that I'll get out of that nib. Again, you can push it from a fine to a medium, but you're not going to push it much further. And that's, I'd say, typically the same with most nibs, is that you will normally get a nib width wider if you try to push it. The next pen is the Visconti Camelot. So we'll do an ink swatch here. And this is another inked up pen with Diamine Earl Grey. So this is the Visconti Camelot, and it is a medium, and it is the older 18 karat gold nib from Visconti, and it's a two-tone nib, and then the ink in here is Diamine Earl Grey, which is a beautiful grey ink. It's an ink that I like a lot. The next pen is the Visconti Last Templar Jacques de Molay. So we'll do an ink swatch. And this is a medium nib, and I have to say that I do like this medium nib a lot. And I do find that it writes very, very well. So this is the Visconti, and it's the Last Templar Jacques de Molay, and it is a medium, and it is a 23 cat palladium nib. Just double checking that. And then the ink in here is Diamine Earl Grey, which is a lovely coloured ink. And then I'll do the flex test there, or bounce test a little bit. I didn't actually do it on the Camelot, so I will just go back and do that on the Camelot as well. So there you go, you can see. Again, most of those are actually pushing, if they're a medium nib, they're pushing towards a broad nib, I would say. The next pen is the Ryan Krusac Legend 16 in the Dragon Slayer. So we'll do an ink swatch. And I'm just going to flush the converter a bit because I've not written with this for a few days. And it probably needs it, because it's been very hot here in the UK. So let's, there you go. So this is a medium nib. It is a Yovo steel nib. I do find that this nib writes more like a fine nib. So this is the Ryan Krusac Legend 16 in the Dragon Slayer. And it is a medium, and it is a steel Yovo nib. I might even actually put a broad nib on here at some point. I think a broad nib would actually write better. And then the ink in here is Noodler's Apache Sunset, which is a beautiful shading ink. Would actually work better in a broad nib. You do have to be careful with Noodler's Apache Sunset because it doesn't dry very well. So you can sometimes find out days later that ink still hasn't dried. The next pen and the final pen is the Onoto Magna Classic. So we'll do an ink swatch. And a little bit of a hard start there because again I've not written with it for a few days and it has been quite warm, or quite hot I should say. So this is the Onoto Magna Classic in the chased jade or green, and it is a medium and it is an 18 cat gold nib, and the ink in here is Diamine Apple Glory, which is a beautiful bright green apple coloured ink. So I think let's take a look at these pens inked up one more time. So we have a Danitiro, and this is the Takumi Moonlit Grass in a fine 18 karat gold nib inked up with Diamond Wild Strawberry. We have a Danitiro Chinkin Cage Matter in a fine 18 karat gold nib inked up with Pilot Washizuku in a Ho. We have a Visconti Daedalus in a medium 23 karat palladium nib inked up with Visconti Blue. We have a Yada Led Grand Victorian in a fine 18 karat gold nib inked up with Noodler's Habanero. We have a Yada Led Grand Barley in a medium 18 karat gold nib inked up with Vora and Klinger Verdura. We have an Onoto Magna Carta in a fine 18 karat gold nib inked up with Diamond Earl Grey. We have a Visconti Camelot in a medium 18 karat gold nib inked up with Diamond Earl Grey. We have a Visconti Last Templar Jacques de Molay in a medium 23 karat palladium nib inked up with Diamond Earl Grey. We have a Ryan Krusac Legends 16 in the Dragon Slayer in a medium steel nib inked up with Noodler's Apache Sunset. And then last but not least we have an Onoto Magna Classic in the Chase Jade in a medium 18 karat gold nib inked up with Diamond Apple Glory. So there you have it, that's my currently ink pens for this week. Thanks for watching, please like, comment and subscribe, and I'll see you on the next pen video. Bye bye.